Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and I want to bring you a very short discussion over the issue of, I call this the Gypsy Rose Blanchard versus Maya Kowalski. Now, you would wonder, why would I have a versus on these two cases? Well, I want to point out that we had no mandatory reporting over here of possible child abuse and Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And over here, we had definitely the doctors and Johns Hopkins intervened, believing that there might be child abuse and Munchausen syndrome by proxy, because they never intervened over here. Gypsy Rose Blanchard suffered 2 decades of torture by her mother, who was a psychopath of the nth degree, who exhibited Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And let me clear this up to you right away. Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a lot of people say, well, that's a mental disorder, psychiatric disorder. I don't agree with that. I think it's crap, and I wish they'd take that away. It's a behavior of psychopathy. So in other words, a psychopath seeking power and control, seeking attention, seeking a thrill, will choose what method they want to use. We will see serial rapists, for example, is one method. Serial homicide is another method. We have a lot of serial killers out there who get their thrills and their power and control out of committing these rapes and murders, sexual homicides. And sometimes they get attention as well because they see it in the papers and they'll say, ha, you don't know I did that. Cool. And then once they get convicted, if they do, then they get books written about them and they get movies made about them as well. Cool, huh? Tension. It's the method chosen by a psychopath to get power and control and thrills and attention varies from person to person. Sometimes with females, because they tend not to get into the serial rape and homicide thing, they tend to find victims closer to home that give them that power and control and the thrills and the attention. We sometimes will see women who kill one child after the other. They're serial killers. They kill their own children, one after the other. And sometimes they get away with it. Sometimes they get away with it for a period of time, but they're serial killers. You can say they're Munchausen syndrome by proxy, but so what? They're still serial killers because it's just the methodology that gives them the Munchausen syndrome by proxy label. They're serial killers. Now, in this case, Dee Dee Blanchard was not a serial killer. She was an abuser of one person. Well, she probably abused other people in life, but basically her daughter. She abused Gypsy Rose. And by constantly abusing Gypsy Rose, by keeping her in captivity, by lying about her conditions, by manipulating the doctors, by conning everyone, she got total power and control over her child and the people in the circle around her child. She got a thrill out of that. Man, that makes me feel good. Makes you feel great. She also got money as well. She played a lot of people. She's a con artist. So when people they say, oh, that person had Munchausen syndrome by proxy, like it was some kind of disease. No, they're psychopaths who use a methodology, which we label Munchausen syndrome by proxy, simply because it means you are abusing or harming or claiming things about someone who's in your power to get your attention. So this is a psychopath. She exhibited Munchausen syndrome by proxy as her behavior, as her technique for getting what she wanted. And she abused the living heck out of her daughter for more than 2 decades. She took her daughter to hospital after hospital, doctor after doctor, and never did those doctors ever say, we should separate these two long enough so find out whether this kid really has the problem she claims. Instead, they gave her surgeries and medication based on nothing. Absolute. There's more abuse. That was medical abuse by the system because, hey, she's saying this and we don't want to object to it. We don't want to get in trouble. So we'll just go along with the program because we make money and we seem like nice people. So they did horrible things to her. Turns out she had none of the problems. It was claimed she couldn't walk. She could walk. It was claimed she had leukemia. She didn't have leukemia. The worst thing she ever had was crossed eyes. And her mother eventually got surgeries that destroyed her vocal issues and ruined her teeth. So she has to have fake teeth now, and kept her in a wheelchair. And she made her lie for her, like, oh yeah, I can't walk, when she could walk, because if she didn't say that, she would be in trouble with mommy. So she was just a vicious, horrible psychopath. And so Gypsy went through 2 decades of this crap. And finally, one day, it started getting old enough to say, I'm being held hostage here, and couldn't figure out a way out. So essentially, she found a guy on the internet who was more of a psychopath than her mom, maybe, and said, oh, I like killing. Could I rape your mom too? And so she got that guy to kill her mother. And they both went down. He went down for life in prison, and she got 10 years. I personally think she should have gone to a psychiatric institute, because I think they were in a folie à deux situation where the two people came together, and she was desperate and he knew she was desperate. So he was willing to commit a crime for her, but not just because he was in love with her and all that crap, but because he really wanted to see what it was like to kill somebody. He was into rape and murder. So he had somebody who was willing to have him rape and murder. So he's like, oh, cool. So I think that psycho needs to be where he is, which is in prison for life. She, I thought, should have been a psychiatric institute, but she ended up in prison. Actually, it was a better life than she ever had. So she's grown, and now she's out of prison. She got married, which, if you check out my link below, I have an open letter to Gypsy, which I discuss all the issues she's had and what she's getting into. You might find that very interesting. But anyway, she's out. But the medical people did nothing but abuse her as well and make money off of her. So they suck too. Now, you go over here, Johns Hopkins, which, you have to check out my link below on the Maya Kowalski case, because you'll find what I think about everything. And you also know my own history of dealing with the medical system. I'm not a medical person. I worked as a sign language interpreter in the hospitals for over 13 years of my life. I knew a lot. I learned a lot. I love some of the doctors. I love some of the nurses. I love working in the emergency room. But I haven't been to a doctor in 30 years. I will stay away. I've had bad experiences. I don't trust a lot of stuff that goes down. Okay? So it's not like I'm like suck up to the medical system. Like, oh, I just love doctors. I think everything. No. But I believe that the doctors are correct in the Maya Kowalski case. They saw that her mother exhibited some behaviors that were like Munchausen by proxy. That her insistence that they shouldn't diagnose her daughter, that they should rush to do what she says and give the medication she said, because she said, my daughter's in extreme pain, you should give this medication, which was not a medication that they were comfortable giving without diagnosis and trying other things first. She didn't want to allow that. So they started getting these red flags all over the place. And so they tried to protect this child. And so eventually it went to the court system, and they were separated, and things didn't go well. She did well, but her mother eventually took her life, and claiming that is because she couldn't be with her daughter, although that's a whole thing, which is in my video. Click on my video on the whole Maya Kowalski case. And Johns Hopkins got nailed in a massive lawsuit, and they lost a whole crap load of money. And I'm not feeling sad about the money issue, because, quite frankly, I think all the medical establishment is the whole insurance medical system is a bunch of criminals in themselves. Personal thing on the side. But I do think the doctors in this case and the people at the hospital did the right thing. They were trying to protect this child. They were doing mandatory reporting. They were seeing red flags, and they were trying to help, and they got nailed for it. They got completely slammed for it. Over here, nobody did a damn thing but make money off this kid and allow her to be abused. And nobody has an issue over here. It's funny. I'm watching the documentary. I'm seeing the comments. I'm like, oh, poor Gypsy. She was a bad mommy. But nobody talks about medical system. Over here, same thing. But I was like, bad medical system, bad doctors, bad people. They were horrible. They took this mother's rights away. This mother's rights? Nobody took her rights away. Look what she did. Her rights? They tried to separate them for a period of time so they could see if she was really had the problems. But everybody living hates. I can't tell you how many hate comments I've gotten because I actually support what the doctors did in this situation. and the hospital. All right, so, but let me get to something. I want to say something about the documentary that was done. It was a Lifetime documentary. It started out really well. Gypsy sits in a chair. She talks about her case. Very interesting. I liked it very much. And then it devolved in a horrible reality series thing. But before that crap happened, they had some people on. And I have to say, a lot of times with psychologists and psychiatrists, they don't seem to understand psychopathy. They will avoid the term psychopathy, and they will go to all kinds of other terms like, we don't want to label somebody. And so Munchausen syndrome by proxy oftentimes is downplayed as, again, some weird like chemical disorder, some weird disorder that doesn't have anything to do with psychopathy. And I'm so annoyed by this. And rarely do I see somebody stand up and say what I think they should say. So I'm watching Lifetime, and here comes this one of these people, and I'm already having an attitude. And her name is, by the way, her name is Beatrice Yorker. She's a professor, I can't even pronounce it. I don't know if it's emerita, of nursing, criminal justice, and criminalistics at California State University in Los Angeles. She spoke about, and this is where what happened was I saw her on the show, and I was like, I was liking her. So yeah, you didn't expect that. I was liking her. I'm like, who is this person? So I went over to check it out because I'm thinking, let me show you what she said, and I'll go back to what she said about the Maya Kowalski case. She's talking about a person who's in a Munchausen abuse situation. The object, that person is an object of that person with Munchausen syndrome. So she's saying that my Gypsy, in this case, was just an object, which is absolutely true. Her mother never loved her. Her mother just used her. She was an object to her mother. And I was thrilled to see how this was stated by this particular person. And then she said this is Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Then she said that when a person is Munchausen syndrome by proxy, they will learn to play, that they really look sick and they play the part when they are with their mother. But as soon as their mother leaves, all of a sudden the kid is perfectly normal. I'm like, holy crap. Did I hear this right? So she was talking about Munchausen syndrome by proxy, saying that and she said this too. I think Gypsy had Stockholm syndrome. Yes, she had Stockholm syndrome. When you have Stockholm syndrome, you identify with the person who's kidnapped you, essentially, the person who's keeping you captive, your captor. You identify with them. So what happens is you do what they say, and if you do what they say, they treat you so nicely. They give you a toy, they give you a gift, they give you the food whatever the heck it is. They give you love. The only way you get any kind of attention and love is to do what they say. So when you go to the doctor, they've already programmed you to say, I can't walk, I can't do this, I can't do that. They programmed you. You are playing a part that you do because you want them to not torture you and you want the love from them. You have Stockholm syndrome. When she was there, the same thing is true for this. Could it be that she was playing the part because mommy wanted her to play that part? Now, mind you, I'm not saying she didn't have some issues. Sometimes you can have a condition that then is exaggerated or misused for people with Munchausen syndrome, psychopaths who exhibit Munchausen syndrome by proxy. In other words, they glom onto it. So I was like, happy day. My kid's got a problem. Let me exaggerate it. Let me over-medicate it. Let me go to 7 different doctors until I get more attention. It doesn't mean that the child may not have some issues. She may have had exactly what her mother thought she had, but the treatment she got that her mother wanted her to get was excessive and perhaps incorrect. But even if mom thought it was true, why was she so confrontational with the doctors when she knew how if she brought her child to a hospital, the doctors had to do due diligence and do proper diagnoses. She wouldn't allow it. So was she playing a part? Was she also Stockholm syndrome, playing a part to appease a mother? And I was very pleased to see this particular person. I was like, wow, I'm excited. And then I went and looked her up. So I'm like, okay, so her name is Beatrice Yorker. And then I looked back and it said, and she also spoke about the impact the verdict in the Take Care of Maya case, the Netflix documentary, could have on mandatory reporters across the nation. And I was like, oh my God, I'm in love. Finally, I see someone, everything she said, I agreed with. She obviously understands psychopathy. She understands Munchausen syndrome by proxy. She understands the need for doctors to do something to save children in this situation. And they did it here. And they got slammed with a massive, they lost the lawsuit. And everybody's like, and what it's going to do for mandatory reporting in the future, where doctors do actually, if they learn, because most of the time they don't get training, they should get training in Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Understand when you got a psychopath who comes in there and is lying like a dog, do you understand that they're a psychopath? I worked in hospitals for years. And one of my clients, I was they were deaf, and I was a sign language interpreter. Okay, so she would come in, and she had a baby, and she would lie about that baby like you wouldn't believe. Baby has this problem. The baby has this problem, and the doctors would fall for it because I think, oh, she's a concerned mother, and I'm like, I'm rolling my eyes because I know she's lying. That woman's a psycho, but I was an interpreter, so there was a requirement, a code of ethics. I wasn't allowed to say, hey, she's a liar. she didn't care about that baby. I couldn't do that. And I'm just so frustrated. So one time she came in on one of her pregnancies, and she kept claiming she was bleeding and she had cramps. And they couldn't find any real truth of that. So they put her through all these testing. And the doctors at the end of the shift said, we don't see any reason to do an emergency C-section, because the baby was like 6 months, really young, but because we don't see what she's saying is happening. The shift changed, a new doctor came in, and he was like, I'm going to go ahead with the C-section. I'm like, holy crap. I actually wrote something down and handed to the nurse and said, do you know what Munchausen syndrome by proxy is? Do you understand that she's making up everything she's saying and it's not happening? That doctor, that criminal, went ahead, gave her a C-section. That baby was born blind, deaf, and mentally disabled, and lived in the hospital for 6 children for 6 months before it died. I can't remember. I think it was a girl before she died. Do you know that mommy was happier than she's ever been in her life because she got to go to the hospital for sick children, and everybody pitied her and hugged her and, oh, you poor baby. And she would come, oh, how's my baby doing? She loved that baby being sick. She loved that baby being as tormented as it was. She was thrilled. She had 6 months of happiness. Baby died. She got pregnant again. Do you know the first thing she said to the doctor when she came in? The first thing she goes, they go, oh, you're pregnant. She goes, yes, my baby died. I forgot, like 3 months ago, my baby died. And so I'm so happy I'm pregnant again. She used the baby died thing in every single conversation she had because she was a psychopath. And she exhibited Munchausen syndrome by proxy, and nobody caught on. You can't believe the damage that woman did to her own children and how much she abused. She took advantage of all the doctors, and they never figured it out because they never had any dang training on psychopathy and Munchausen syndrome by proxy. So here you have finally somebody who knew what Munchausen syndrome by proxy looked like. And they said, maybe this child, we should just make sure we do proper diagnosis on this child and not allow her to manipulate us. And all hell broke loose. And they paid the price. So thank you very much, Beatrice Yorker, because you're speaking up. Yes, what do we do about the situation now? Because now we're not going to say anything. We're going to be these people. We'll let a child be tortured for 20 years because we don't dare say anything. So yes, that might have a horrible, horrible effect. I want to mention one other person in the show just because I was pleased about him too. A guy by the name of Dr. John Matthew Fabian. He's a forensic and clinical neuropsychologist. I was so thankful he said this. So perhaps Dee Dee was, so I believe that Dee Dee was perhaps a psychopath. He put perhaps in there so he wouldn't get sued by somebody. I'll take the perhaps and boot that crap out of there. At least he was willing to say the word psychopath. Thank you very much, because the people have a fear of the word, especially psychologists, psychiatrists. They don't want to say the word psychopath. They'll downplay that to the end of the earth. But when you got a mom who's a psychopath, somebody ought to tell you that. And do check my letter to Gypsy, because she's still trying to love her mom. She's still trying to accept her mom. She's trying to excuse her mom. I'm like, hey, stop it. She was a psychopath. You don't have to do that. That's not your responsibility. You got screwed by her. You don't have to play her game anymore. But it's a problem because people don't want to say the word psychopath. And as Dr. Drew always said when I came on the show, said, so Pat, why do you think this guy is like, you're going to say he's a psychopath, aren't you? I'm like, he's a serial killer. So yes. So I have been known to use the word psychopath a lot. But I think it's because so many people downplay things and don't accept that some people in this world are psychopaths. And the psychopath can cause so much damage to the people around them. The amount of abuse, the amount of manipulation, gaslighting that they can do is horrific. And anybody who's ever lived with a psychopath will agree with me 100% on that. And they'll say, I keep telling people that and they don't believe me. Well, I believe you. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this. I saw the documentary yeah, I still see these two things as, folks, we have, I'm a big person for parental rights. I homeschooled my kids. I had home births. I had family beds, which were not considered okay. So I did a lot of things that were not well liked by the governmental system or the medical system. So I'm not like a person that plays along with whatever is the most popular thing. I am kind of that person who people go, and so I believe in parental rights, but I also believe there's a point where you start seeing abuse, you start seeing a child being harmed. And at some point you do have to step in because that child has nobody but you to save them. So if you're in the medical profession, please learn about psychopathy. Please learn about Munchausen by proxy and understand that is a behavior of psychopathy. Don't believe it's something else. Understand how it works, because I've seen a tremendous amount of psychopaths roll through the medical system as an interpreter, and I watch them play you all the time, play you day in and day out, and I'm just going, because I know better. I know these people. I watch them, but it's so I think this is a training thing that needs to happen in the medical systems. But also, what are we going to do if you can't report? If when you report, you get nailed for it. That's another problem. So it's a complicated problem. So please don't just be so emotional. It's like, oh my God, how could they do this? Understand it's a very difficult problem, but we have to have some solution to it. Anyway, okay, that's it. That's kind of my soapbox. If you're new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. It does help. This is an educational channel. I appreciate that. If you're interested in all the cases that I profile, please look at my playlist. Also, if you go to the search engine on YouTube, you can put in Profiler Pat Brown in any case you are interested in and see if I've already profiled that case. I do crime scene analysis, and my point is not to tell stories, but to actually help people understand how crime scene analysis is done and take you through the whole thought process. I usually do everything unedited, so what you see is what you get because I'm lazy. Anyway, thank you for being here, and do check my open letter to Gypsy Rose Blanchard. I think you'll find that quite interesting as well. So thank you for being here, and thank you for listening to me. And until next time, bye.